Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Unsurprisingly, Prime Minister Mark Carney has lied about something else that he and the Liberal Party campaigned on in the 2025 federal election. Now he's walking back his stance on oil and gas development and pipelines. During the election, he made it seem like, unlike Justin Trudeau, he was going to be far more friendly to new development of oil and gas resources and building pipelines. But now he's being a complete weasel and putting it on the provinces to block them and then backing up the provinces if they say no. Basically, he's saying yes, but not if David Eby doesn't want to do it. Yes, but not if Legault doesn't want to do it. Yes, but not if Wab Canoe doesn't want to do it, which is basically just him saying no. Because as the prime minister, it should be his job to help these national projects ram through and actually get completed. And instead, he is allowing people who don't actually have the jurisdiction to stop them because this is an actual national interest of the country, and provinces cannot block other provinces from building projects. When it's a singular small pipeline that just needs to run from one part of the country to another, one province can't say, well, it's our jurisdiction, you're not allowed to do it, because now that's an attack against another province's industries by saying that they can't actually export efficiently, which is what's happened to the oil and gas resources in Alberta for decades now. I'm going to get into it in just a second here. I'm just going to remind you guys, if you like the show, if you like my coverage of stuff going on in Canada, make sure to like the video, subscribe if you are not yet a subscriber, and leave a comment on what you think about the topic of the day. Here is Mark Carney in a press conference alongside, I believe, like, of course, that's Chrystia Freeland. I always forget his name, the other guy's name. It doesn't matter. He's basically just an appendage of Mark Carney these days. But here's Mark Carney in English after answering in French, saying that, well, of course I'm in favor of pipelines and oil and gas development, but not if anyone else says no. And I guarantee not only does he mean the premiers, he probably also means First Nations groups, he probably means environmental activist groups. He can say yes while saying no as long as he wants. He can keep saying yes, but then saying, but there's this holdup right here, which is so weaselly in my opinion.
I'll simplify. We will not impose a project on a province. We need consensus behind these projects, and we need the participation of Indigenous peoples. I'm going to add some.
What does participation mean, though? This is the thing that drives me up a wall. Participation of First Nations people? You mean not building a pipeline is going to somehow involve them more? Because that is effectively what you're doing by letting band councils hold up projects forever through endless consultations, often in lands that they don't actually get to say whether or not a pipeline gets built, but the government will pretend that they have veto, and so it allows them to veto it by pretending another group vetoed. This is, again, the game Mark Carney is playing. He is saying yes while saying no. He's saying, of course I want it, but these people don't, but this premier doesn't. But, there's this, this is this environmental review we got to do because tides told us to or whatever. It's so silly.
Something, I'll translate into French, yes. Which is what's encouraging from the First Minister's meeting in Saskatchewan is that many provinces came together in support of projects that would stretch across provincial boundaries. So, for example, the Western and Arctic Corridor would be an example, or the Energy East Partnership. That's Energy East Partnership, not pipeline, to be clear.
Even he couldn't say pipeline, even though Doug Ford is on board with the pipeline, Scott Moe is. Wab Canoe is a bit of a wild card. He's been talking about having a pipeline built to a port in Hudson's Bay to move bitumen and oil and gas products, LNG, but he's always someone who's going to be very beholden to the Indigenous lobby in Manitoba. That's just been his brand. He's been signing over lands to First Nations groups that really didn't have control of them in the first place. And so, yeah, there might be a possibility there, but the main holdups are Quebec's a big holdup, and we have BC as a big holdup. Technically, we could do an end run around Quebec. The problem is it's obviously less efficient to be trying to build in Ontario than building in Quebec, where you immediately have access to the Atlantic Sea or to the Atlantic Ocean. Again, Hudson's Bay is a good possibility, but on the West Coast, David Eby wasn't even at that first minister's meeting. Is Mark Carney going to chastise him for going to Japan and hanging out in convenience stores and saying, look, they have hard bite potato chips in Japanese convenience stores? Wowee. By the way, unless that's a recent development, goodness, I was in Japan less than a year ago. I did not notice these BC products around. This is like a North Korean fake village in the sense that they were probably letting a bunch of the products be on some Japanese store shelves just to make David Eby look good, so then they could actually get to negotiating over real import and export deals. They're not probably going to actually start stocking Canadian snack foods everywhere. It was just an easy way of letting David Eby pretend he had gotten a win early. But David Eby said no to a pipeline. And he wasn't at the first minister's meeting. So what's Carney talking about? Oh, well, we had a lot of agreement. Wow, Danielle Smith and Scott Moe agreed? Okay. A bunch of maritime premiers agreed. Okay, well, they don't even matter in all the grand scheme of things here, unless you're going to build a pipeline out to New Brunswick. Yeah, kind of Wob Canoe's on board a little bit, but again, he's kind of always 1 foot in the pool, 1 foot out of the pool. And then you have Doug Ford in Ontario, which I guess that's good. At the same time, it's not as efficient to be building a pipeline to one of the Great Lakes and then trying to go through the St. Lawrence with those oil and gas products. You always want to go directly to the Atlantic. So yes, this is all very obnoxious. If you noticed a pause there, it's because I had to sneeze really bad. Now I just want to bring up one other thing, because it's not quite deserving of its own video right now, but this is pretty pathetic, and it comes courtesy of one of the best conservative MLAs or MPs right now, Andrew Lawton, who was challenging, I believe it was the Minister of Public Safety, but a minister involved with the gun bans and gun confiscations right now. He challenged him on it, and it turns out this guy doesn't even know what a PAL or RPAL license is.
Chair, does the minister know what an RPAL is?
No, Minister.
I do not.
Member.
Does the minister know what the CFSC is?
No, Minister.
I do not. No.
Member.
I'll stipulate, Chair, that is the Canadian firearms safety course that all gun owners in Canada have to do to get their firearms license. Has the minister ever done the Canadian firearms safety course?
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, it's my 3rd week on the job. No, I have not.
The Honourable Member.
Does the minister know what safety classes and safety demands are expected of law-abiding Canadian gun owners?
The Honourable Minister.
This is not about law-abiding gun owners, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member.
How can the minister make that claim when he doesn't know the basic fundamentals of law-abiding gun ownership in this country, Chair?
Brilliant. I love Andrew Lawton. This proves why you actually do want more people who have independent media experience in government, someone who knows how to set up a great line of questioning, someone who knows how to actually turn these moments into something more theatrical. I think that Andrew Lawton did a great job there. It was so good, members of the left started going around saying, well, it was edited. It was heavily edited. And Andrew Lawton absolutely crushed this one guy who said, well, there's editing going on here. Okay, watch the tape. It is still those are his questions, and those are the man's responses. Andrew and his team of people are smart enough to know that the average person doesn't want to sit around for 5 minutes while Andrew stands up, he asks a question, he sits down. And if you ever watch these budget estimate meetings, you'll have someone say, well, would the minister tell me this or that? And they'll sit down. And the person is not obliged to stand up and answer right away. Sometimes they're fiddling with notes and they're sitting there waiting, and it takes them a while. They're discussing, and then they get up. There's no strict amount of time where it's not like question period where you say something and the person needs to get back up. So really, you're gonna wait. Andrew, you should play the full 10-minute tape. Really, they know he just looked like crap. He didn't know what a possession and acquisition license was, or a restricted possession and acquisition license, the things that you need to be able to openly own a firearm in Canada. And he's the man who's going to be administering potentially the gun confiscation, which is absolutely going after law-abiding gun owners, because I'm not sure if the Liberals have figured it out yet, but gangs do not pack their heat from Cabela's. They're not going to Bass Pro Shop to get a rifle to knock over a liquor store. These people get guns smuggled over the border that they refuse to actually secure properly. In fact, they were at one point over in Roxham Road, just allowing illegal people to walk over the border, which was also distracting police and border security from being able to catch people who are smuggling drugs, guns, and other things in and out of Canada. It's absolutely mind-boggling that this man is now going to be in charge of things to do with firearms. Again, law-abiding gun owners not only are not committing the gang shootings in downtown Toronto or even in rural areas, they are also less likely to commit a violent offense than any Canadian. They are almost they are almost pacifists, except for the fact that they own guns. These people, gun owners, people who have PAL licenses, are 1/3 as likely as the average Canadian to commit a violent offense. Because if you start committing violent offenses, you're not going to have a PAL license very long. It's one of those things that sort of builds up a responsible citizen, that you have a privilege that would get taken away from you if you were not being responsible. And this is something that even many states have in the US. You have a right to own a firearm, but we also have the ability to at least test you before you do it. People can argue whether you should have to take a test or not. As long as it's straightforward and easy, I don't see why it's a bad thing, especially, again, it kind of builds up that responsibility in people. I wish in high school we would bring back firearm safety courses. They used to do those. I wish every high school guy would get a PAL license before they leave high school. I wish everyone would have to get a driver's license before they leave high school. I don't care if you live in the most metropolitan downtown place possible. I think everyone should be doing things that make them more free and more responsible, because getting more responsibilities, getting more privileges makes you more free. Being able to drive a car objectively makes you more free than somebody who can only ride a bike, ride public transportation, or take an Uber. But anyways, so that's it for this video, guys. I know I went a little bit off the trail there at the end. I talked about this firearm issue, but I always think it's good to pair up the more eye-catching topic with something that's a little bit harder to market in the end. That's how YouTube works, guys. In case you want to get into YouTube, talk about whatever you want in the video, but just title the video after the bigger piece of news. Anyways, getting a little bit of a peek behind the curtain here. So that's it for me today, guys. Remember to like the video if you've been liking my coverage, subscribe, leave a comment, do all that fantastic stuff, and I'll see you guys all later.